Now, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. He's chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and he's a member of the January 6th Select Committee and was the lead impeachment manager for the first impeachment trial of Donald Trump. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Congressman Schiff. One thing I've been wondering about is what has your investigation revealed anything that prevented Mike Pence from saying a month earlier than January 6th that the vice president does not have the power to reject any electors on January 6th?
No, of course not. I mean, there would be nothing to prevent the vice president from the first time the issue was raised, making it very clear to the public that the vice president doesn't have this power. There's nothing to this. No serious constitutional scholar would even argue this. And of course, the same is true, Lawrence, for so many other people who have testified or not testified. Attorney General Barr could have told the country that I think maybe the president has lost his grip on the reality. And yet they didn't. Look, I'm glad they're speaking now, and I'm glad that the vice president took the action he did. It was a critical time to do the right thing. But so much of the trauma the country has been through, we could have been spared if people spoke out then as they're speaking out now.
Do you know when the vice president's statement, the written statement that he put out on January 6th, did you find out when it was drafted? Because it's a multi-page statement. Doesn't look like it was written that morning.
I think that when we conclude our investigation, anything that we haven't revealed during the course of the public hearings, we will be revealing either by subject matter or en masse. So we'll be disclosing to the public. I don't know the answer off the top of my head and don't know that I would be able to go into those particulars, even if I did, as it's not a matter of the public record.
Was the primary objective of today's hearing to establish consciousness of guilt in Donald Trump with the testimony that several people told him, legal authorities in White House counsel's office and elsewhere told him that it would be against the law, it would be a violation of law for Mike Pence to try to change the Electoral College vote?
That was certainly part of our goal today. The overriding objective was to tell the public the story of one of the lines of effort to overturn the election, one of the multiple ways in which the president sought to prevent the peaceful transfer of power was to pressure his vice president into ignoring the Constitution, into essentially being a one-person adjudicator of who the next president would be. But of course, in that plot, we wanted to outline the president's culpability, what he knew about how flawed a theory this was. So yes, that was very important, but we wanted to tell the broader story too of president loses election, president can't accept losing the election, president trots out these bogus claims of fraud, his own attorney general says they're BS, so they fall back on a different plan. Let's pressure Mike Pence into ignoring the Constitution and declaring me the winner, even though, as you point out, we demonstrated he knew that would never fly with the Supreme Court or anyone else.
So the committee sent a letter to Clarence Thomass's wife today asking for her cooperation, asking her to come in for a conversation. She publicly said to the Daily Caller, a Trump-supporting website, that she's happy to clear up any confusion and answer your questions. Has the committee heard from Ginny Thomas yet?
I don't know whether we have heard directly as opposed to through the Daily Caller, as you point out. But I'm glad that she is responding favorably. We'd like to hear what she has to say. We have a great many questions to ask. And we wish that, frankly, all witnesses with relevant information would take the same attitude and come in and share with us what they know. Indeed, the whole situation with Representative Loudermilk shown on that video, giving that tour after denying giving tours, might have been avoided if he accepted our invitation to come in and testify.
At one point, John Eastman said that he believed Clarence Thomas would vote on the Supreme Court to support the vice president rejecting Electoral College votes. Do you have any indication that Eastman got that information from Ginny Thomas?
I really can't go into the facts until we have a chance to discuss those during one of our hearings, if that becomes a subject of one of our hearings. I will say, as I have in the past, Lawrence, that the idea that a Supreme Court justice would rule or presume to rule in a case in which the issue is whether Congress should see documents that might reveal his own spouse's communications on the subject, it just screams of a conflict of interest. And I can't see how Justice Thomas can preside over any case related to this matter.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you very much for joining us in our coverage tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.